Tottenham the only side in the Premier League without a win so
And we are
far?
even closer to the relegation zone, fam.
I want to show you something. This is the Deloitte Money League, a list of the 10 richest clubs in the world, and 6 of them play in the Premier League. On paper, England dominates football financially, but here's the problem. Spending more money doesn't mean you're better. It means you're risking more. Take FC Barcelona, who sit at second place on the Money League. They spend 463 million euros a year on player wages. That's bought them 78 league goals and only 26 conceded, meaning Catalonia's head office are currently spending 9.08 million euros per goal to keep them at the summit of La Liga. Expensive, but worth every penny. Now look at 9th place on the Money League, Tottenham Hotspur, 281 million euros in wages paid per year, and all the club has managed is 40 goals and conceding 50 goals. They're not just underperforming, they are burning millions just to get worse. As of this recording, they sit at 17th in the Premier League, 1 point off the drop zone. If we were to use the same metric we used for FC Barcelona, since the goal difference is in the negative, Tottenham are burning through 25 million euros for every goal they concede, meaning they would have to score 8.5 goals per game in the 7 games left between now and the end of the season, just to be even with Barcelona.
Breaking news to bring you that Ange Postecoglou is going to be sacked by Tottenham Hotspur.
Thomas the Frank engine has been sacked with immediate effect.
And the news we've all been waiting for, to be honest, Tottenham have parted ways with Igor Tudor.
I don't think people realize how horrendous Spurs have been this season. They're not just having a bad season, they're financially built to fail. And it gets worse. Opta gives them a 56% chance of getting relegated. Now, most fans hear that and think, relax, even if they go under, they'll come straight back up. No they won't, because of something called a relegation clause. Think of it as an emergency exit for the players and not the club. If Spurs go down, the best players don't just stay and fight, they get to leave for the cheap. A 60 million euro signing like Xavi Simons could leave for a discounted fee of 22 million euros to Borussia Dortmund or Inter Milan, and the same applies to star players like Christian Romero, Mickey van der Ven, Dominic Solanke, James Maddison, and more. That squad you thought would dominate the championship, it won't exist anymore. And instead, you're left with a team broken and unstable. And that's what I want to make clear to you in this video. Relegation to the EFL Championship won't just hurt Spurs, it could erase them. And the Big Six as we know it after this season could be a thing of the past.
It's over, it's over. We are gonna go down faster than Ray J in a Kim Kardashian tape blood. We're going down.
Carvey, in terms of numbers-wise, maybe players, contracts-wise, how much would a relegation cost Spurs?
Oof. I think you're looking at probably £250 million.
Wow.
Most people right now are arguing whether Tottenham Hotspur will get relegated or not, whether that's pundits on television or fans online. But this isn't one of those videos that seek to tell you why Spurs will in fact get relegated. Instead, I want to show you what will happen should the team get relegated. Because if Spurs go down, it won't force them to play outside the Premier League for only one season. I truly believe it could trap them outside the Premier League for multiple years to come, similar to teams like Sunderland and Leeds United. In the early 2000s, Leeds United were flying. They reached the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League in the 2000-2001 season, just one step away from the biggest game in club football. So they spent big trying to get back to the semi-finals and maybe eventually the finals, gambling on success that never came. Within 2 seasons, they were relegated from the Premier League, forced to sell their best players, and in financial turmoil. It took them 16 years to get promoted back to the English Premier League.
One of the biggest names in English football. They are Leeds United, and they are heading out of the Premier League.
The club who were champions of England 12 years ago, who only 3 years ago were in the Champions League semi-finals, are going down.
And there's 2 reasons why Spurs could have a similar fate to what happened to Leeds United 25 years ago, going from winning the Europa League to desperately struggling to regain promotion back to the Premier League, all in the span of 3 years. And the 2 reasons are the relegation clause on their players' contracts and the debt on their £1 billion stadium. Now, this all may sound a bit complicated, but I'll peel back the layers for you and make it easy to understand. Let's start with the relegation clause. Put simply, when Tottenham Hotspur sign a player, they don't just agree on a transfer fee, they also build in protection for the player in case things go wrong. Take Ghanaian winger Mohamed Kudus, for example. he signed with Spurs from West Ham United for £63 million. In his contract, there is a clause that states, should Spurs get relegated, he can leave the team for much less than he was signed for. Not £63 million, but maybe something like £27 to £30 million. Think about that. Spurs spent £63 million to get him to North London from West Ham, but should they get relegated, they can only recoup little under half of what they paid for him. But that's only one part of a relegation clause. If he doesn't leave because no European teams were interested in acquiring his services and Mohamed Kudus stays with Spurs, he plays in the Championship, and that's where it gets worse. Mohamed Kudus earns £150,000 per week to play for Spurs in the Premier League. But in the case that they get relegated to the Championship, that figure could drop to £50,000 per week, meaning Mohamed Kudus would lose out on 60 to 70% of his wages due to relegation. So this relegation clause would force the club to sell their most expensive players for a fraction of what they bought them for, or should they fail to transfer to another team, they would have to drastically cut their wages. And this is the part most fans miss. Relegation doesn't mean playing in a lower league. It means your best players become cheaper overnight and your entire squad starts breaking apart.
It has brought up this question of, could a Big Six team actually get relegated? Last season, they won 11, drew 5, lost 22 games, had a -1 goal difference and finished with 38 points. This year, won 7, drawn 8, lost 11, -1 goal difference, points 29.
So the point is it's consistent.
The point is it's consistent, and it's consistent in completely the wrong direction.
Since about October 2024, over a course of almost a year and a half, they have been probably in the bottom of 4 or 5 performers in the Premier League.
Completely.
Yeah.
And if we are talking about that magic 40-point mark, you know, they failed to get that last year. They were very lucky because the teams that got relegated were pretty rubbish.
And even if Tottenham tried to recover by selling their best players after relegation, it actually doesn't fix the problem. In fact, it can make things financially worse. And the reason for that comes down to something called player amortization. Now, don't let the term throw you off. It's actually very simple. When a club signs a player, they don't treat the transfer fee as one big upfront cost. Instead, they spread the cost evenly across the length of the player's contract. Let's use a real example. Tottenham Hotspur's most expensive signing is Xavi Simons, who joined the club for £51.8 million. That record would have gone to Morgan Gibbs-White, who they nearly signed for £60 million. But we all know how that went.
Now, yesterday we said that Tottenham Hotspur had met the release clause, which we understand to be £60 million in Morgan Gibbs-White's contract. Nottingham Forest consider Morgan Gibbs-White's proposed move to Tottenham off.
The deal is off. Morgan Gibbs-White signs a new deal at Forest. Only Spurs could get the here we go, and then it get bottled like Derek Chisora around David Hay at a press conference, fam. Why is it always us that gets embarrassed? Why is it always us that looks like the fat thing working at the club, fam? Weeks, fam. That Forest owner, Marinakis, that Greek Margin Boo, standing behind Morgan Gibbs-White like he's Bubba D from Dragon Ball Z, smiling. I seen the photo.
Now, Simons signed a 5-year contract. So, instead of Tottenham recording £51.8 million as a single expense, they split it across 5 years. That means £58.1 million divided by 5 years roughly cost Tottenham £10.35 million per year for Xavi Simons. So, on paper, Tottenham up RB Leipzig £10.35 million per year for the transfer. And this is what most people don't realize when they see transfer headlines. When Sky Sports reports a £50 million signing, that money isn't hitting the club, it's spread out over time. You see this phenomena across football. Liverpool signed Alexander Isak for £125 million on a 6-year deal, which means they allocate roughly £20.83 million per year to Newcastle United for Isak. Chelsea, on the other hand, signed Moses Caicedo for £115 million on an 8-year contract, which means they allocate roughly £14.37 million towards Brighton. It's standard practice, but here's where things start to stack up. The £10.35 million per year for Xavi Simons is only the transfer fee. Tottenham also have to pay the players' wages. At RB Leipzig, Xavi Simons' estimated wages were around £100,000 per week, which is about £5.2 million per year. At Tottenham, he saw those figures rise to £195,000 per week or just over £10 million per year. So, when Xavi's amortization and wages are accounted for, Tottenham burn through £20.4 million per year on Xavi Simons alone. Now, here's the part most people miss, and this is where relegation becomes dangerous. If Tottenham Hotspur in fact go down and decide to sell Simons, let's say for €25 million to a club like Inter Milan or Galatasaray, the problem doesn't disappear. Yes, you save on his wages, that's £10 million per year gone, but the remaining transfer fee to RB Leipzig doesn't vanish. Tottenham still owe money from the original £51.8 million deal they made with RB Leipzig. Selling the player doesn't cancel that obligation. So now you have a championship club earning less, losing its best players, and still paying off past transfers. And if they fail to meet those payments, there are consequences. UEFA can step in and restrict their ability to sign new players until those debts are settled, which makes climbing back to the Premier League even harder for a championship team. Now that we have broken down how Spurs could lose their best players the moment relegation hits, we need to talk about something even bigger. Because Spurs losing their best players is one thing, but what happens to their finances should they go down? And that's where things start to spiral out of control. You've probably seen the headline, Tottenham stand to lose £250 million if they go down. But here's the issue, those numbers get thrown around without anybody actually explaining where the money disappears to.
Okay. Carve, in terms of numbers-wise, maybe players, contracts-wise, how much would a relegation cost Spurs?
I think you're looking at probably £250 million.
Wow.
How seismic are we looking at? I hear lots of figures being banded around. What are your kind of insights saying?
Look, I think seismic is the right word. I mean, it definitely will be the largest single-year drop in revenue that any club probably in the world has had. In fact, it's not just in England. You are looking at something in the order of £200 to £250 million.
Because once you understand that, you realize this isn't just a bad season. This is about whether Tottenham Hotspur can sustain itself outside the Premier League. Because modern day football isn't just played on the pitch anymore. It's built on money. Money that funds player wages, transfers, youth development, and most importantly, infrastructure. And this is where the financial side of the story starts to rear its ugly head. For over a century, clubs were built on tradition. Tottenham Hotspur played at White Hart Lane for 118 years. Everton, on the other hand, spent 130 years at Goodison Park. These weren't billion-pound projects. They were homes built slowly and sustainably over time. But today, that model doesn't exist anymore.
We wanted to take on the challenge of making it even more monumental, so that beyond playing football, it could be the entertainment center that Madrid needed.
Now, clubs are forced to spend hundreds of millions, sometimes even billions, just to keep up. Everton have moved into a new £800 million stadium. Manchester United are planning a £2 billion rebuild of Old Trafford, and Spurs have replaced White Hart Lane with a £1 billion stadium in 2019. And that right there is where the risk comes in. Because as of 2026, Spurs still owe £831 million on that stadium. So, when you combine relegation, player sales, and collapsing revenue, you don't just get a weaker team, you get a club with massive financial obligations and no clear way to meet them. And that's where we arrive to that 250 million figure, not as a headline, but as the beginning of something much worse. Now, most fans believe the biggest clubs in the world are printing money. They're not. If you actually break down the numbers from the Deloitte Money League, you'll find something that completely flips that assumption on its head. Out of the 10 richest clubs in the world, only 3 made a profit in 2025. Only 3. Now, let's be clear about what that means. Clubs like Real Madrid, who did make a profit, are doing things sustainably at the very top of the game. But the majority, clubs like Chelsea, Manchester United, and even Tottenham, are operating at a loss, and not a small loss either. Across those 10 top clubs, they generated a combined €12.4 billion in revenue. Yet, 7 of them still lost money. Think about how absurd that is. These are the richest, most powerful clubs in the world, and most of them are financially still in the red. And then you zoom in on Tottenham. Tottenham Hotspur posted a £121 million loss. Even after winning the UEFA Europa League, which brought in roughly £35 million, they still couldn't offset their spending. So now you're left with a contradiction that doesn't make sense on the surface. How can a club this rich still lose money? And how can you win a European trophy and still be worse off financially? The answer is simple. Revenue in football isn't fixed, it's performance driven. And more specifically, your league position quietly dictates how much money you make. The higher you finish, the more you earn. Drop down the table, your income shrinks. And that's exactly where Tottenham's problems begin. Because once you understand how clubs actually make money, you start to see how quickly things spiral out of control.
What would their commercial revenue be?
Let's say Nike pay Spurs 30 million a year, which is a reported fee. To put into context what happens if you miss your mark with some of those merchandise partners. If Man United miss out on Europe 2 years in a row, it's reported that they have to pay Adidas 10 million. And apply that to Spurs, where you're likely to have similar situations where Nike are going to have contingencies in place protecting themselves from poor performance. AIA, the deal that they've got on front of shirt, that lasts until the end of next season. So they'll be protected next year, as in they would still have the sponsor, unless there was a break clause at some point. Now, AIA then contracted to go onto their training kit at about 15 million a year after that until 2032. Does that contract agreement that they will have looked at as secure revenue up to 2032, does that suddenly change if the position and status of Spurs materially changes?
There are 4 core revenue streams every club relies on: broadcasting revenue, commercial revenue, match day revenue, and player sales. And when even one of those starts to decline, especially because of poor league performance, the entire financial structure begins to crumble. Let's start with the biggest one: broadcasting. Broadcasting revenue, put simply, is the money clubs get paid just for being shown on TV. Every time Tottenham Hotspur play in the Premier League, that game is sold to broadcasters across the UK and around the world, and that's how the real money comes in. Last season alone, the Premier League generated £2.8 billion from TV rights, and that figure is poised to climb to £3.4 billion at the end of this season. Now, here's where things get interesting. This money isn't split evenly. It's heavily influenced by where you finish in the Premier League table. Liverpool, who won their 17th Premier League title last season, earned £174.9 million. Manchester United finishing 15th and £136.2 million. And Tottenham Hotspur, after a poor season, dropped from 5th to 17th and £127 million. That's nearly a £50 million gap between first place Liverpool and where Spurs ended, just from a league position. No transfers, no sponsorship, just performance. Now, roughly add the £34.7 million they earned from winning the Europa League and you expect things to balance out. But they don't, because even with European success, Tottenham brought in only around £161.7 million from those streams, which is actually £5.5 million less than they made when they finished 5th 2 seasons ago. So let's simplify what happened. They won a European trophy and still made less money overall. That's the part most fans never see, because in football, success isn't just about what you win, it's about where you finish consistently. And when you drop even slightly, the financial consequences are felt immediately. Now, moving on to commercial revenue. Put simply, commercial revenue is the money a club makes by renting out their brand to big companies. Tottenham doesn't just play football, they are a walking billboard. Companies pay to be seen alongside them. For example, AIA, a huge insurance company from Hong Kong, £50 million per year just to have their logo on their front of shirt. Nike pays another £50 million a year to make and sell their kits. Add in all the other sponsors and Tottenham made £277 million from commercial deals alone in 2025. Then you have matchday income. This is the money that comes directly from fans. Tickets, food, drinks, everything inside the stadium. Tottenham played 27 home games in 2025 across all competitions, and those fans generated £126.5 million. So, when you combine everything, broadcasting, commercial, and matchday revenue, Tottenham brought in £565 million in a single year. That sounds like a club completely safe, right? But here's where it flips on its head. If Tottenham get relegated, that £565 million doesn't just drop slightly, it could fall off a cliff to around £305 million.
Who might get this double whammy of not just relegation, but also no UEFA revenue next season. So you're going to lose 100 million on the UEFA, you're going to lose 75 on the domestic. Your 200 million quid, their current year broadcast is probably 200 million. They're going to go to 55 if they get relegated. That's 145 million hit over one season, mitigated largely by wage reductions and player sales. Now that's a very difficult situation.
Now, here's the uncomfortable part. Tottenham's wage bill alone is already £255.8 million. That means if they go down, almost all their income would be eaten by just paying players. But as I explained earlier, we all know those star players won't stay behind to play championship football. And all that has to be accounted in, along with stadium maintenance that cost the club £202 million and Also without mentioning the £881 million in debt they owe from building the stadium. So this isn't just about Spurs playing in the championship for a season. No, this is the entire financial system of a club starting to break. Because if you think about it, would AIA pay £50 million to sponsor a team playing in the second division? I don't think so.
Why do Big Six clubs build up these vast cost bases?
Because they don't think they'll get relegated.
Because they know that they can't get relegated.
Or
that's
can
why.
They? I mean,
that is why.
And if you look at the numbers, okay, we're talking about a business dropping out of the Premier League that has £584 million of revenue, £288 million of commercial revenue, £167 million in broadcast, £131 million in match day.
And that's the part most people miss. Relegation for a club like Spurs wouldn't just be a sporting setback, it would be a business collapse. And that's why getting relegated to the championship could mean Spurs would disappear from being a Big Six club.